In last class, we discussed about abiotic components like light, water, temperature, air, soil, humidity, etc. So today, let's learn about the biotic components. So biotic components is living components. So in an environment, there are some living components like plants, animals, human beings, microorganisms, etc. So each and every organism there depends to its environment. For example, fish. The fish they only present in the aquatic. The condition or the environment is they need water to survive. So each and every organism they depends on its environment. It may be for the food or it may be for the to survive or some other reasons. Every organism influences the life of others and in turn are influenced by the others. That means the each and every organism influences the life of others. They depends to the others to survive or they influences by the others. It may depends to the others or they depends to each other. The biotic components including producers like plants, consumers like animals, and decomposers like microorganisms. So first let's discuss about producers. Producers means during the photosynthesis, the food is prepared in the plants. That means by using chlorophyll, green color pigment containing the green plants that can be convert solar energy into chemical energy by photosynthesis process. That means producers can convert the sunlight, that is solar energy, into chemical energy by photosynthesis process. So for the photosynthesis process, it needs carbon dioxide, light, solar energy, water, and carbon dioxide. By using these things, the plants prepares the food by converting the solar energy into chemical energy. So by this photosynthesis process, it is known as producers. So all other forms of life are directly or indirectly depends on the plants for food. Now the plants prepares the food, but some of the animals or some other living organism they depends directly or indirectly. They get the food. The plants can get the food directly because they themselves they prepare the food, but the other animals, other living organisms, they may directly or indirectly they are depending on the plants for the food. So plants are capable of producing their own food are known as autotrophs. Autotrophs means the plants they can prepare the food themselves, so it is known as autotrophs. Plants are the autotrophs because they prepare the food themselves. They prepare the food. Second one, consumers. Consumers are the animals that are depend on the producers for their food. Now for example, animal. I'll take animal cow, and this cow need the food. So the cow eat only the plants. Only it eats plants. So the plants The the animal eat only the plants like grass or some leaves, like these kinds take as a food. So the animals that are depend on the producers for their food. Here the producer is a plants and consumer is a animal. Animal is cow and producer is a plants. So the here the cow cannot prepare the food. So it depends to the producers. So it is known as heterotrophs. The animals are known as heterotrophs because they cannot prepare the food themselves. So there are three types consumers depending upon the type of food they eat, which type of food, whether they eat flesh or whether they eat plants or both, like flesh and plants. So depends on that. The consumers depending upon the type of food they eat. So there are three types. First one is herbivorous. Herbivorous means the they are the plant eating animals such as sheep, caterpillar, etc. Like these animals, they eat only the plants. The animals they eat only the plants is known as herbivorous. So herbivorous is also known as primary consumers. Primary consumers. Example, caterpillar, cow, sheep, goat, etc. Second one, carnivorous. Carnivorous are the animals that eat only flesh. They eat only flesh like a tiger, lion, snake. So these are known as carnivorous. And these carnivorous is also known as secondary consumers. Carnivorous is also known as secondary consumers. Third one, omnivorous. Omnivorous are the animals that eat both plants and animals. That is, the omnivorous animals they eat both herbivorous and carnivorous. So they are known as omnivorous animals. Like human beings. Human beings eat both plants and flesh. So the human being, most of the human beings which comes under omnivorous. Fourth one is scavengers. Scavengers are the consumers that feed on dead animals like vultures and raccoon. They are the animals scavengers because they are the consumers that feed on dead animals. Where there is a dead animals, they take as a food, that is dead animals. Next is about decomposers. What is mean by decomposers? So decomposers including microorganisms like bacteria and fungi that feed on dead organisms and break down the complex substances in them into simple substance and release them into the environment. That is, in the decomposers, it includes the microorganisms like bacteria, fungi. So these bacteria, fungi that feed on dead organism. So if there is a dead organisms, these decomposers like bacteria, fungi, these will take as a food and they break down into larger to smaller substances, and that substances which is released to the environment. So these simple substances that can be used by the plants for their growth. So when they are exposed to the environment, the there will be some plants. So these plants take as a nutrients from the decomposers. So the decomposers have a great role or very important role in recycling the matter. That is, when the dead or decaying organisms are present in the environment, that completely converted into simple molecules or simple substances, that substances which is utilized by the plants as a nutrients for the growth. So the decomposers have a great role in the recycling the matter. Next, you already learned about the abiotic and biotic components. Now, the interaction between biotic and abiotic components. So, what is the interaction or how they depend to each other? So, first one is components are interdependent and influence to each other. That means if you see in our surroundings, there are number of plants, animals, so these both living and non-living components. So each living organism they depends to the component, that may be abiotic components or non-living components. So each component, either biotic or abiotic components, they depends or they interact with each other for their survival. So the for example, if you take the plants, plants need the light. Light is a abiotic component, plant is a biotic component. So plants will depends to the light. So to prepare the food in the plants need the light. So to survive, because of survive or to get the energy, so plants need the different abiotic components. So each component they are interdependent and influence to each other. It may be for the water or energy or food, oxygen, shelter, etc. All the plants and animals living together in an area is known as a community. That means the plants and the animals they live together, so in a particular region. Some of the plants or some of the animals they live together in a particular region is known as community. Human beings also form a part of this community called the biota or biotic community. So in this community, that means if the plants and animals are together, and also human beings also depending to their for the community is known as biota or biotic community. The place a biotic community occupies is called a habitat. That means the in which region the biotic human beings occupies the place, that region is known as habitat. Ecosystem is a self-sustained unit. Ecosystem is self-sustained unit. So it is because the plants and animals always they interact with each other and their environment. So they produce all the materials which is necessary for their survival. So the ecosystem is a self-sustaining unit. That means in our earth there are number of plants, animals or the living organisms. So these every organism they will depend or they interact with each other and also in the environment. So which are the materials they need? They produce. Why they produce? To survive. They need the food or they need to survive or they need oxygen, energy. So because of these reasons, they produce all the materials which is necessary for their survival. So ecosystem is a self-sustained unit. Next, a biotic components biotic components are light, water, air, humidity, soil, etc. So they are taken by the biotic producers. Who is biotic producers? Plants or grass. So these biotic producers, they need the abiotic components like light, water, air, etc. So why they need these things, abiotic factors? They need to prepare their food. Now, the food is taken in by the consumers, but the plants prepares the food. Who will eat the plants? The herbivorous animals will take the food. That means the consumers. Who is the consumer? Plant eating animals. They are the one of the consumers like herbivorous. So the consumers need the food, so they depend to the producers. So when the producers and consumers die, when these producers and consumers, producer is a plant, consumer is cow. So when the both the producer and consumer die, the decomposers act on their bodies. Decomposers means the including the bacteria, fungi, they will be feed on the dead organisms and they break the substances from the complex to simple. So these composers acts on their bodies and they get the nutrients back to the atmosphere. So this is about the complete food chain and food web. That means there is a flow of energy from the sun, abiotic component, to the plants, then to the animals like consumers, then decomposers like eating it back to the environment. So this forms a basis of food chain and food web. That means the abiotic components are depends to the biotic components. So these biotic components depends some of the animals as a consumers, and then when they die, when the consumers and producers die, they converts into decomposers, and decomposers returns the nutrients back to the environment or atmosphere. So there will be flow of energy from the sun to environment. So this is the complete basis of the food chain and food